everybody. This is James Diboe, Discovering, dedicated to original peoples. As always, we've got episode 4 dealing with the whole Americas. Whole Americas mean whether North America, South America, Central America, or the Caribbean. That's the Americas. We've done episode 1, Africa, episode 2, Asia, episode 3, Australia and the Pacific. Now today is episode 4, continuation, slideshow, and we're dealing with the Americas. So the first place I'm going to start with is Cuba. Reason for this 2006 when I first went, and this was the beginning of the adventures and the beginning of, getting out there consistently every year. So that's why we're starting with Cuba. And start with the history of Cuba first of all. It's just like many parts of the Americas, really. So basically, first peoples to come into these lands were Black peoples. As we know, the first migration is out of Africa. And people, moved across Asia, moved across into the Americas. Now, there's different directions some people came. Some people came to talk about crossing the Bering Land Bridge when you was able to cross it. Then there's people who got there by boat, sailed there. Now, we know from deep research and evidence that there was different Black populations that got to the Americas before the Mongols came, which we'll get to. So now, there's evidence of people like people from Australasia, the Melanesian type, that they got to the Americas, South America in particular, and the coastal areas and that. We know that Africans sailed there also, whether they come from the Nile Valley civilizations or whether it was West Africa. Also, we know about Polynesians seafaring there. There's evidence of Polynesians that went there. Then later you get the Mongol type crossing the Bering Land Bridge, and they basically came there after the Black peoples, as we know. Now, the civilizations were set up by Black peoples in these areas, of the whole Americas. But now the focus is basically on Cuba. So with Cuba now, the time when the Spanish come, so the Spanish basically tried to exterminate these indigenous peoples. Now, the surviving populations, there's very few people left, and I'll explain. So these few populations of indigenous peoples left, there's areas in Cuba where you will find these indigenous peoples, and it's not quite the same as it once was, of course. There's a tiny minority of them trying to preserve the culture, and unfortunately, due to many different times that have gone on in Cuba, obviously the slave trade, bringing Africans over, and obviously large populations, and obviously Fidel Castro, the communism times. So they've always had their life interfered, indigenous peoples, as we know about what goes on with the Native Americans, always had the life interfered, spirituality, the culture, the civilizations always get disturbed. Now, obviously, meeting the African people now, the Africans who still practice their African spirituality, a main one in Cuba is Santeria. Now, what's so interesting about African culture being preserved, I was very happy to see that, whether through in the music, the drummings, through in the culture, and the Yoruba speakers as well, which I was fascinated with that. People still speaking Yoruba. So that was interesting, meeting African peoples. And I always did like Cuban music before I went there, very, very great music. And I always wondered that, who invented this type of music, So I started research and learned about it's the Africans who brought it, weren't the Spanish, So the Africans definitely brought that in. Now, my experience in Cuba was quite interesting, you see, because first of all, I'm in a place called Varadero. So I'm getting a bit bored there, and obviously this is like kind of the beginning of my adventures and my whole trips and that consistently. I'm getting bored in there now. And I know that there's a lot more to it than just being in this tour de zone. So I was happy to link up with local Cubans. And this changed my whole mind frame of what to do when you travel. It's definitely about linking up with the local people if you want to really know about that country and have a better time as well. So now I'm getting a bit bored within the first couple of days. I'm like, well, I feel like I'm just isolated, trapped. So now start speaking to some local people when you're just on the beach, walking around. And he said to me, you know, you look bored here, you need to see the real Cuba. And I was like, yeah, definitely, because not worse than just being only in the tourist zone. Nice to relax and them things and that, but you really want to see a country, you've got to connect with the local people, or just be a wanderer and just venture out, whatever, which you'll start doing later. So anyway, I links up with these local peoples now, and they told me to meet them at 4 o'clock or something like that in the afternoon. So I met up with them about 4 o'clock. Now we're walking towards to get a bus. Now they're going to take me into a place called Cardener, and also another time my dad said, but Cardener first we're dealing with now. So they're taking me now to these areas now. So I noticed that local people pay half price and people who are not from this country pay double. So we get on the bus now. Now, I weren't studying too much about it's communism and, see, it was quite a funny thing, especially back in 2006, where a lot of the local people on the bus or certain other places that I went were quite afraid to speak to you. But this is mostly, I noticed, in the tourist area, it weren't too much when you go out. So now I'm on the bus now, and the person who's with me, I'm having a conversation with them, but they keep doing like that, like, why are they doing that? So they want me to don't speak too much because it'll attract attention, because they're not, when I say not supposed to be mingling with the local people, well, tourist people who ain't from there. Yeah, they had to kind of keep it quiet and that. So they was just saying, don't talk until we get off the bus. I thought, it's all right then. So we get off the bus now. Now they're taking us to different places. First jumped on a horse and carriage to get to where we're going. And we meet a lot of the people on the street, and we're speaking to all different peoples. Very interesting people, very friendly. I couldn't ask for more. And I've seen a lot of the African peoples and still preserving the culture, which was great. So I was more happy getting out of this area now, and it was a totally a lot better. So taking us to local places to eat, introducing us to their friends. So I was really happy to connect with these people. So now we, just go by the house. They started cooking for us, playing some great Cuban music. Oh, it was great, it was. And then also, we were drinking the Cuban beers, and, it was a great hospitality, very friendly people in that. So that was like the start of everything anyway. So now we felt more comfortable around different peoples now. So as we're walking back down the streets and that, I noticed they kept on saying to us, try not to talk too much. And I was kind of doing my head in a bit because, I don't mind like going along with the program, but you don't want to be like over quiet, because then it's like you're not being yourself, is it? So now I remember seeing some of these wagons going past now with a lot of Cubans standing outside, and they looked quite worried when they seen them. I don't know who they were, what, but I kept on seeing them actually everywhere. There's a load of Cuban guys standing up at the back of like a wagon, and they look like some dangerous peoples and that. So they just said it was like almost like that. The people didn't mind hanging out with us, but they didn't want other people to know that they're hanging out with us. And I've been to Cuba for a while now, so I don't know how it is now. Is it maybe they're more open to people who come in from other countries? I'm not too sure, but back then the experience was very interesting. So I kept in contact with these peoples now. So we had a great night, went a few bars out there and that. So now we went back to the hotel, and I thought, you know what, I'm happy. I've seen something different so far. So now I feel confident to start moving around Cuba now. And then now an interesting one now. We went to a place called Madanza, was the name or something like that. So now we get a taxi there now because we're starting to figure out that there's a whole lot more to Cuba than where we're staying. So we went to a place, Madanza. Now, Madanza's an interesting place because you have a lot of street parties there. And there was cars there with big, massive speakers, just blasting the music, and it was like, whoa, there's some atmosphere down here. It's great. The people were great down there, everyone friendly. And it was interesting linking up with some of the African Cubans as well. And they would tell me that, yeah, where am I from? That's all. Well, I'm from, I always say Nigeria, even though I say I'm born in England, but my roots is Nigeria. So they were telling me about a lot of Yoruba peoples, Yoruba speakers. And I thought that was very interesting, learn about the Yoruba speakers and that. So they were telling me about the practice Santeria, the ancient African spirituality, they call Vodun, different names and that. So that was great to be amongst them. And a lot of them were, doing little things like playing with the cards and stuff like that. And, some of them like to, like, not predict your future, but like, some of them like they throw like the bones. So when you throw the bones, it kind of like they read into your life and, tell you a bit about this and a bit about that. Some interesting things they were saying, very interesting stuff, Some people believe what they say, some people don't believe it, but I was just connecting with the culture, and I'm from Nigeria, so these things are not brand new to us. And it was really great going there. And then we got also another driver now. Now we got like what we did is when we went back to the hotel after that night, and I'm feeling confident to go where we want. There was another driver now that the security in the hotel explained to us, yeah, use the type that need to get out there. So I was happy to get out there, and he said, well, I'll get you a driver. Don't just take any driver. Now, this taxi driver, now, he's not like where you pay by the meter. It wasn't even like just giving the money and that. Basically, what happened is he said, he'll hire you you can have this driver for 3 hours, take you wherever you want, anywhere, and it will cost you about maybe 20 quid, £20, £25. So I was really happy with that. Picks us up. Now he's taking us to this other area now, Juventus, or I can't remember the full name, but it was that long ago. So he takes us there now. Now, here's the interesting part now. He just pulls up by where all the action is, all the different bars and all that. So I'm now thinking to myself, well, did we just get out here? He went, yeah, I'll wait for you, whatever you want us to wait. Well, great. So now it goes into, trying a few different bars, wandering around. So now we get approached by the two Cuban guys. I think they were brothers. Now, he approaches and says, I recognize that we're not from. They actually thought that we might be from Canada for some reason. And I think he said Canada because maybe there weren't too many Americans going there. So maybe the people from that part are usually from Canada, I don't know, maybe Americans go there now. I ain't aware of that. But back then, it weren't really common. So he's selling us like Cuban cigars and all these things and all that. So he says now that you just want to come to like a party, and there's a lot going on, and so young and naive and eager, you could say, yeah. I says, okay, yeah. So he says, let's go then. Now I said, we've got a driver outside. He didn't know we had a driver, you see. So what we said is if you come in the taxi with us, come in the car with us, we're not gonna. He was thinking that we're just gonna wander off somewhere, and I said, no, you have to come in the driver. Gets in the car now. Now we were gonna drive to where their house is or whatever, yeah. So as we're driving toward the house, one thing I found with these Cubans now, don't like the driver to park outside the house. This is like I said, because it was like the communism, they don't want to look like they're mingling with people from outside and that. So now they don't tell you that the house is all the way down there. So the driver pops up, pulls up, and I said to them, we're going to go buy this for the beer. Can you wait for this? He said, yeah, of course. So when the driver parks, and he parks, we're walking through like these different, like some sort of maze to get back to, to get to their home. So I thought it was quite a long walk. This, maybe it was like felt like enough 10 minutes. So what I'm trying to do is remember the route back in case, because the driver's not going to just pull up. The driver won't even know which house you're going into. So now we get to the door now. Now there wasn't actually no party. They just tried to bring you in, to try and benefit and gain, get some money off you and that, yeah. So the first thing now, he knocks on the door. Okay, knocks on the door. Now the person who answers the door is just half asleep, sleep in his eyes, everything like that. Opens the door now and starts kicking off on his friend. What are you doing knocking this late? Blah, blah. So he turned to us and said, look, born in England, or that one. So as soon as he said that, the man who was half asleep all of a sudden just woke up and rubbed his eye like that. Oh, English, oh, come in, like that, So okay, goes in now. And just with one of my friends and that. So goes in there now, and I'm looking, well, where's the party? So basically we're sitting there now, and he's saying, oh, more people are going to come now and now, and so waiting. So there must be about 5 people in there. There's a few people, like a few dudes just lying on some mattress on the floor, and it was like they were all awake now because people from the UK have came over. So I'm getting a bit impatient now because it's just like you don't know if they brought you to rob you. Anything can go on, you know what I'm saying? So I'm on point though at the same time. So someone knocks at the door, lets them in. I was just thinking, like, what's going on here? It's about like 6 guys or something now. So I'm thinking to myself, then he's speaking to me friend and that, oh, I like that chain you've got on. And then he's saying stuff like, oh, me grandmother gave me it before she passed and all that one. Because they say things like, can I buy you a chain? And reality, you can't afford to buy a chain. They'll take your chain, if anything, isn't it? So now I'm getting a bit impatient now. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think it's time to leave. So every time I was standing up, he's going, no, 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 no. The party's starting. It's coming. Don't worry, don't worry. So now I just got too impatient. I just stood up and just said to me friend, let's go. And then he's trying to convince me not to stay. So I ended up kicking off saying, listen, you're a liar. So I was just going on to them. So now I just left and went out the door. So now we've got to remember that way back now to where this driver is. So we're walking now. Now the 2 of them who brought us there came out and were following us towards the driver. So he says, now, I'm sorry about what happened. Nothing's happening with the party, basically. But I tell you what, I'll take you to a great nightclub or something like that, a bar, nightclub. So he jumps in there. So the driver now said, are you okay? I think okay. I said, yeah, it's just he's messing about and that. So now he drives us to this nightclub now. and said, look, it's good that you're with the local people. Don't say too much and you sort of blend in as Cubans. Takes in the nightclub, and we had a great time in this nightclub. Now, it wasn't the fact that, because I reckon, from when I look back, I think they were on some shadiness and that, you know what I'm saying? So basically, um, once he's seen that we're not playing around and like we're not going to be hanging about, and you don't know how many different other people are going to be coming in the house. So once we went to the nightclub and this and that, enjoyed ourselves, and then I thought, you know what, we better link up with this driver now because the time's ticking now, So in the end, I think they wanted us to take us back to some other party, a different place and that. And then I said, you know what, swerve that now. And then we just got back into the taxi. But I did get lost for a bit when I was looking for the driver and that was quite crazy. Found the driver in the end because, like I say, wherever they take you, they don't have the driver park right outside. They like to take the driver like 5 minutes, 10 minutes away. So it was almost like a maze. I was like looking around to try and find the driver. I know the drivers look the same. So then in the end, I found the driver and I was like, well, just take it back now to Baradero. So he takes us back now. And, it was an excellent experience in that. But at the same time, what I learned from it is that don't just go back to, people can't just take you to the house just randomly because anything can happen to you. You can get murdered, robbed, anything can happen to you. But at the same time, held me own, so that was an interesting experience. And getting lost as well was like, wow, if we don't find this driver, what are we going to do? Now, the good thing is you don't pay your driver until after your whole trip. So that's what made it even safer. So the driver brought us back now and then paid him the money, and it ended up turning out to be better than what we thought. It could have been worse. So it was great linking up with the Cuban people and that. And, you get more comfortable when you're somewhere and that. And the people, like I said, I connected with them. And then some of them were taking us to different places, like local like restaurants. I like the Cuban food because the hotel food was very bored and bland, plain, So it was a great experience, Cuba, and I was very happy connecting with the African culture, definitely. So that was Cuba anyway. I'm going to go on to Venezuela now. Venezuela, around about 2008. Now, Venezuela was that was an interesting place and interesting experience and that. Now, Spanish speaking again, like we say Spanish, they caused a lot of destruction to the indigenous peoples. Now, I was meant to go to the Amazon rainforest when I was there, the Amazon rainforest. Now, I didn't end up going at the time because there was an incident that happened where I don't know if it was the security at the reception, or I don't know if it was the cleaners or whatever. But when we were out the night, they'd stole money from my bag. I could have got a safe, but I was really thick at the time. So money was gone after they come back from a night out. And I'm like, it's late in the night, you checking your bags, what's going on here? So speaking to the reception people and I said, what's going on? But they knew we were going out and, I couldn't point the finger at who it was, and that. So unfortunately, because of that, that's why I didn't end up going to the Amazon rainforest. They had the trip planned and everything. And so that was a big disappointment because I wanted to go meet the indigenous peoples in the Amazon rainforest because I was very close to the Amazon. And you get to see the waterfalls and all that. So I was very disappointed with that one. So fair enough, we just stayed we stayed local for a bit, just doing the regular things, going for a drink, this, that. So we noticed that a lot of the local people, we haven't chatted with the local people, African, a lot of black people as well in Venezuela. Yeah, a lot of other peoples like Spanish, and then some of them mixture with like the Native American Spanish and African, some mixture of all. So what I found is from even the time when we landed in Venezuela, And the first thing the security did was single us out from all the rest of the white tourists and basically said, we need to search your bags. They were just on us, and it was like, well, why only us? Really searching, did they rip, pulling your clothes everywhere and all that one. So I started seeing that, what these Latin Americans, some of them have a big colorism problem. And a little bit like that in Cuba, but I'd say more in Venezuela. So I noticed as well when I was walking around at the night time and that, I had the same policeman stopping me. One time, the first time, he stopped me on the streets now. Just, I'm just thinking it's just a random search. So he says that, empty your pockets and this and that, because, there's a lot of corruption out there. So empty me pockets now. And he basically said, asked me, what are you doing? Something. I just pointed over there and just said, oh, we're staying over there in the hotel. So I don't know if he's acting like he can't understand me or he just wants to make a problem. So when I'm just saying we're staying over there, he turned around with some silly face and goes, what? I'm thinking, I said, I'm staying over there. He's going, what? Like as if like you give him cheek or something. So I thought, you know what? Say nothing then. Not really getting through this guy. So he's a bit rough with me, like, but this is the first time I've seen the guy. So now he lets us go because he can see we're right close to our hotel. So now maybe 2 nights later, we're just out nighttime and that, so coming back from where the bars are and that, same cop pulled me over. And I'm thinking to myself, why is it he just singling me out? And I noticed that they have a colorism problem in some of these places, Latin America itself. So the second time he stopped me, this time I was actually by myself, funny enough. So caught me off guard. So he starts calling me over, like I'm thinking, oh, this same guy again, and really like a crazy kind of cop. He had that like murderous look on him, and he got guns on them and all that. So he's searching me now on the car, patting me down. So I've had one of them man bags on, and I put the man bag. I've had to put it there at the side, searching the man bag, and luckily there was very small amount of money there. It was only enough to get a taxi back to the hotel. That was because I knew that this time I'm not going to be like carrying large amounts of money, plus as well getting money taken from the hotel. So I was very wary. So we did get a safe in the hotel. So we snuck out the little money that he had, must have pocketed it. But now I can go now and jump back in the car. So I'm searching in the bag and then the money's gone missing and that. So and this guy looked like some Spanish looking cop. He weren't like a black cop, he was like some Spanish looking one. So I'm checking me back now that he just drive off. And I'm thinking, wow, these are some strange people. I know that it's corrupt and people need money and this and that, but the main thing was it was because it would have been the same cop. It was different. There was a bunch of different cops, but the same one who had just had it in for me. And I could tell he was a racist. And yeah, so luckily I had like some money that he just didn't find, but it was enough to get a taxi basically. So I just got a taxi back and that, and I was thinking to myself, wow, a bit funny. So I remember speaking to some of the people in the hotel and that, and I was saying, cops out here just like harassing, blah, blah. And I said, I believe that they're racist. So what they were saying is that we tell most tourists don't go out after 6 in the evening. I said, well, what kind of place is people going to travel to? You can't go out after 6 because it's dangerous. But what it is as well, because it's one of them countries where at 6 o'clock it goes pitch black, So I found that quite, it was getting quite annoying actually like that. So, but it didn't stop me. I still ventured out, still did what I'm doing. But like I noticed that the further we went out, like going into the towns and going into just traveling about, moving about, found that like the police are very like serious people, very serious people there. They're not playing about, you know. And I remember speaking to some a driver we had and that, and he was mentioning about like he was more of a supporter of the Americans than he was Chavez. Now, for me, I was saying, well, at the end of the day, I understand Chavez's ways because he's trying to preserve something that and not have the influence of the West as always coming in these places infiltrating. So Venezuela was a lot of interesting things that I found there. Some met some good people out there. At the same time, there was some crazy cops. There was also some crazy people out there, but it ended up turning out to be a good time anyway, outside of the corruption. Same when we're leaving the place as well, also, you know, leaving the place and the security again, just signaling us out to people, to searching our bags, not interested in any of the other people's and that. Now, a lot of the black people I spoke to there in Venezuela, a lot of them were saying, yeah, you know, we do have a colorism problem. There's a lot of racism, but at the same time, you know, they're used to it. We don't get me wrong, we know about racism over there in the UK, but it's a bit different out there. It's sort of like colorism, like complexions and stuff like that. So I thought that was like quite interesting. That, but the Africans, you know, they still preserve their culture, which was great. Now, I wouldn't say it's like Cuba, like where Cuba have the strong, like Yoruba, and that Venezuela was a little bit different. Now, I didn't actually see any indigenous people in Venezuela. I did see people that look like indigenous peoples, but just how they were dressed, they were just dressed like local, normal people. But, you know, I tried to get talking to as many different people as possible, which I thought was interesting. And the same with even like Cuba, you know, sometimes you look at some people and you think, well, they could be indigenous Americans. Now, on these censorships, whether Venezuela or whatever, if you look into well, how many indigenous peoples are in this country, they'll give you a very low statistic just because there's certain people or groups who are not recognized as indigenous peoples. So Venezuela, anyway, yeah, that was like a early experience, 2008, and great country, you know, great weather, you know. Now the food, when it comes to the food, dealing with Venezuela and Cuba, most Spanish-speaking countries, I never really rate the food too much. You know, it's quite bland, quite boring. In the local restaurants in Cuba, it was nice and that, but a lot of places I didn't really enjoy the food and that. So the colorism problem is something that stood out in Venezuela, and I was hoping like soon, maybe as the time's gone on, that they're able to break from the bondage of this colorism because this seems a big thing in Latin America. Now, where did it all come from? It goes back to the Spanish and the Portuguese. Well, Spanish obviously in Venezuela, Portuguese other places. So when the Moors were in Spain, it goes back to this. And then when they brought everything into Europe. So when the Moors were kicked out during the times of Columbus, what's basically happened then is more recent poured into Europe. So basically, the Spanish now, for example, a lot of them have got mixed in them, like some have African blood, but they're in denial of their Moorish ancestry. This is the problem with a lot of things. And they have like a hatred for the Moors and stuff like that. So they're complex in their problems and they're self-hating themselves, denying the black blood in them. They passed that on when they came and met the indigenous peoples and also bringing African peoples into these lands. So they've inherited the racism. So the fathers, the Spanish, Portuguese, they have this mulatto problem, you know. So that was Venezuela anyway, and that was the early days. And like you learn a lot from different peoples and that, the corruption and also the African presence there, and the isolated indigenous peoples. But then there's still indigenous peoples wherever you are, but they might not be recognized there because of the censorship and also how they dress and how they live and the language they speak. Maybe some of them have forgot the language and just speak Spanish. So that was Cuba anyway. And sorry, that was Venezuela. So now we're going to go to Brazil. Brazil. Portuguese, obviously, colony, Brazil. Interesting place. I wanted to go to Brazil. Went to Rio de Janeiro, and that was I didn't actually have any problems there, which I thought I would have had a lot of problems due to watching movies like The City of God. All the youth with guns, and you got the favelas. And what was interesting is I did see I actually seen a couple of Native Americans there, indigenous Brazilians. There was actually even one from Peru as well. Now, you haven't even actually got to go into the rainforest to find them. You could just see them just sitting off on the streets in Rio and the beach, or like on the strip. So I remember speaking and bought like a little necklace off them, an Amazonian necklace. And I was having some interesting discussions with them. Great. And I was really happy to meet like someone who still speaks the language, still practices the culture, and is also from the Amazon. And they just come into Rio just to sell little things and that. Yeah, interesting things I was learning off them. And there's quite a large, well, not large, but there's more of a population in Brazil than there is in other parts of maybe South America now. So great meeting the Brazilians, indigenous peoples, tell me all sorts of stuff about the history, the invading Portuguese, and then obviously in the last, I think it was the late 1800s, they brought lots of numbers of Europeans over, because Brazil was predominantly way more black than what it was. Many Africans were brought there. Now Brazil, more African people were brought into the slave trade than any country in the world, the transatlantic slave trade. So you have more black people in Brazil than even the United States, which I was amazed with that. So the oldest people to come into these lands were black people anyway. So I remember watching a documentary about the oldest skeletal remains that they found in Brazil and preserved in Rio de Janeiro Museum. And the oldest skeletal remain was predominantly African or Austro-Melanesian type. They called it Lucia, like we have Lucy in Brazil, Lucy in Africa, sorry, and Lucia they called it. So it was interesting to the fact that, like, I was like, yes, see, we original peoples wherever we go on this planet, really happy about that, so, and then there's a lot of Yoruba speakers in Brazil, who still practice their African spirituality, which I was quite amazed with all these things, and that, African culture still intact. Now, like I said before, they would hide their spirituality within Western religions. So even though Western religions have been opposed on them, they'll basically, yeah, we'll take it on, go to churches and this and that, but on the low, practicing the spirituality, which I thought was great. Now, we were going to go into, we were going into different places and that, but we didn't end up going into the favelas. But right where we was, you can see the favelas from where we are. Now, they had these tours where you can just drive through the favelas, and a lot of tours were doing these tours. So I didn't want to actually do this because it was almost like you're going in there to look at a zoo. So I thought it's quite offensive to just go on the tour. It's different if you've been taken there by a local person, people who are from there, but I didn't want to go in there on a tour bus where you're just driving around looking at all these homeless people, and you wouldn't just walk around there, would you? So if I'm not going to go in there like that, just randomly with the local people, then I don't want to do a tour bus. Now, I know it's very dangerous there. A lot of young people have guns, we see movies like The City of God. And now, The City of God was an interesting movie, and a lot of the local people were from there, even though it was like a Hollywood type of theme where they have to romanticize things a bit more. Try and act like there wasn't a strong community. There's many strong communities there. Nowadays, a lot of things have changed in Brazil. So now another thing, what's very important as well is the local people now. There's a lot of racism in Brazil also. This is a funny thing because you see people of all different complexions. So when I found that, even though it's predominantly a black country, which they don't actually come out and say these things, I found that there's all different, like say the Europeans who came in there in the last, say, 100 years or something like that, in the late 1800s, say. They would, I don't know how many we brought, maybe 4 million, maybe 5 million from different parts of Europe to try and whiten up Brazil. So, so the white man would place himself as the highest, and then the ones who are like a little bit like, quite light, they're like they get respected a little bit more, and then a little bit darker, and then if you're full African, they'll treat you like, they just look at you like slave. And I thought, this is crazy. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's a takeover. It's being like taken over. But lovely people, lovely place, met a lot of good people. Now I noticed that there's a lot of homeless people, a lot of homeless people. Seeing people just lying on the streets, especially when we went out the tourist area, we like a little bit, about maybe 20 minutes or something like that. And there's just all majority of people who are just homeless lying on the streets with black people, 12-year-olds, 9-year-olds, all different, no parents or nothing like that. So I was like, wow, this is really cold, isn't it? Really cold place, cold, like started treating out, deliberately keeping all the black people very poor. So I'm very disappointed with this, and I've seen that. Started noticing as I'm traveling more how much they want to keep down original peoples, keep down black peoples wherever I go in the world. So I'm very disappointed with this. So I was like, wow, this is not right at all. It's not right. But these were all lessons that I've learned. And yeah, enjoyed like the local bars, enjoying the food, enjoying some of the people's company, and going to a festival as well. It was called Lapa or some big festival street party. I like that street party. It was just like, it was freely, just walk around, no problems. Now, the police we didn't have no problems with, but I'm aware that the police have killed a lot of people out there, especially black people. It's not for them to kill a 12-year-old kid. They'll say, "Oh, he's got a gun on him" or something like that. But we were okay, and I was expecting, because I had problems in Venezuela and these places that I think, that you never know what can go on again. So Lapa was a boss place, probably one of the best festivals I've ever been to. Street parties, absolutely amazing out there. So and there's just all different bars. You go in, once you paid your entrance, and then and you can walk around with drink or whatever. You don't have to lose your drink to go into another place and all that. It was one of the best places I've been to in ever, like best festival I've been to. So yeah, Brazil was a nice place, and I didn't realize how far the Amazon rainforest was from Rio de Janeiro. So I was quite disappointed I didn't do my homework to know that, like, well, I need to get into this Amazon. So, but it was good that I still met like Native Americans, indigenous peoples on the streets. So that was a great thing as well, and I was really happy to meet like Yoruba peoples, speaking peoples who still preserve the African culture, and learning the fact that all this music, a lot of the African culture is still intact. And this music's nothing to do with the Portuguese or anyone like that. Yeah, so Brazil was definitely an interesting place. Rio de Janeiro, big country, big country. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm happy to go these places and have no problems and come back, like, just with great memories and that. So yeah, that was Brazil anyway. And it was excellent for me to find out that the majority of the people who were taken in the transatlantic slave trade were brought to Brazil. And I was shocked, very shocked. Also, there was early Muslim presence that were brought into the slave trade. Now, that's Brazil anyway. Now, we're going to move on to the next country now. We're going to move on to Dominican Republic. Yeah, so Dominican Republic was a very interesting place anyway, the history, very interesting. This is actually one of the first places that Christopher and, a lot of the indigenous people were known as things like Tayanos. You also had the Caribs, you got Arawaks, different names of different tribes. You got many more. That's just a few I've named. Now, Dominican, we went into Santo Domingo as well. And that was an excellent place, venturing out, mixing with the local people as usual, because mixing with the local people makes a better trip, gain more experience, get to see the real Dominican Republic, right, just from a tourist perspective. But Dominican, this was what I liked about Dominican. Like, I didn't notice any, well, there is colorism, don't get me wrong, but we didn't actually come across that. And what I mean by that is, I noticed that there's a lot like Dominican, and then you've got Haiti, for example, on the same island, isn't it? Now, a lot of Haitians live in Dominican. Now, people talk about the Dominican, the Haitians not liking each other, and also they've got their colorism problem. Now, I didn't actually notice that myself, because a lot of the Dominicans, they're not light. You will, of course, you're going to find some light, but a lot of them was not light, you know what I'm saying? So Dominican, yeah, they might have that Spanish blood in them, African blood, and maybe some indigenous blood as well. So with the indigenous peoples, I was asking some of the people, you had these people coming into the hotel saying, what do you want to do? Do you want to do an excursion, this and that? So I was asking about the indigenous peoples now, because these are the people I wanted to meet as well. So the indigenous peoples, they told me that there's not left. This is how they explained it to me. There's no more indigenous peoples left. They've been wiped out, whether from diseases, exterminated, and that was it basically. So unfortunately, I didn't get to actually meet actual indigenous peoples. Now, what I did see is the usual, just like what I've seen in like Cuba, for example, or even like Venezuela, certain places, Brazil. I've seen people who you look at them and you think, well, they just look like an indigenous American, but maybe they're not dressed a certain way or they speak Spanish. But basically, if you probably DNA tested them, they could be close enough to 100%. And now I know a lot of them have like Spanish in them and African blood, but the censorships, I've learned that I don't even pay attention to that anymore, because you don't know exactly how accurate these censorships are. Because what they try and do is also, in a lot of these Latin American countries, if you go on the internet and you say how many Black people, how many white people, how many indigenous peoples, they try to rise up the figures of white people high. They try to lower the Blacks down, and then they do things like mulatto and even lower that down. They'll lower the indigenous peoples down, because this is all from a European perspective, these statistics, so I don't pay attention to European statistics. This is what I've learned. That's why I'm an independent researcher into the African history and indigenous peoples, original peoples, wherever we are. So, like I say, I don't go by these censorship, forget all that. Now, unfortunately, I was a bit disappointed I couldn't go and visit like indigenous people. Yeah, they will have little indigenous areas and that, but at the same time, it's not preserved strongly, the culture's there. Now, they do, the way you have in Haiti also, you have the Yoruba speakers, the African presence, and it's strongly. Now, in Dominican, you still see an African presence. You can still see the culture. You can still see through the music, the dancing, many different things, African elements. But it's not as intact as somewhere like Haiti or like Cuba or Brazil or Trinidad, certain places. So it was great, just like linking up the local people, taking us out, venturing out with them, taking us to different spots, venturing, go and visit the homes, they cook for you, and basically just treating us really good, great hospitality. Now, these are just local people who just worked in the hotel, but they knew that, yeah, you know what, let's link up. We show you around Dominican Republic. So it was great just like linking up with them. And, I found like the Dominican people quite cool people as well. A lot of good people there. And the music's amazing, people are cool. And they're just taking us out to different places. We're venturing out. Now, Santo Domingo, I did like that place as well. I thought that was like, even though they look like kind of like, them old like Spanish looking towns, and it's, yeah, you see a lot of the old style cars and stuff like that. Went to a spot also where the big statue of that Christopher Columbus. Very disappointed to see that. I was speaking to some of the local people about the Spanish and how do the Spanish, how was they treating you? And I met up with well, he's not like a historian, but he knows his history anyway. Our oldest guy, he was mentioning about some of the atrocities that happened to whether the indigenous peoples or the Africans when they were enslaved, and how racism spread, and the colorism problem, that spread too. So he was just explaining how wicked the Spanish were, and still to this day, it's really like a Spanish colony, even though there's this word called independent. But the independent word is, I don't even take that serious. You just look at who pulls the strings in different places, and then you ask, are they independent? So, yeah, I thought it was interesting meeting a lot of black people there, all different complexions. Sort of like a little bit like, how can I put it? A bit like Cuba, but at the same time, it was more relaxed than Cuba, where Cuba was like communism and they were worried about like being seen with like people from other countries and that. But Dominican was a great place. Just at the same time, we felt comfortable just wandering around wherever we want to. Was really great place in that. And unfortunately, like I said, I wanted to meet up with indigenous people, but they were wiped out. But I was really happy to meet up with the African peoples there. And, they still, sitting there, they still practice the African spirituality. But like I say, it's not strongly intact like it is in other parts of the Caribbean or South America. So Dominican was definitely a great place, great peoples. And yeah, no problems there, I can actually say as well. Didn't have any problems, and a few nice bars there. And where we were staying as well, we were kind of like in ghetto type of area. We weren't like where it's the nice beach type area and the nice hotels and that, because we just wanted to go very basic. So we weren't even allowed to go onto all the tourists' beaches, and that's the same place to keep the locals out. So we were just straight in ghetto, mixing with local ghetto people, and at the end of the day, it was an experience there. A lot of poverty, of course, as usual. But I did like Dominican anyway, and it was a very great place for me. And it was nice just connecting with black people from different places in the world, So yeah, they told me a lot of atrocities that go on, and from the time one of the first place Christopher Columbus got to, and he was a wicked son of a, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, man, that was Dominican Republic. Now we're going to move on to Trinidad now. Trinidad. Now, interesting place. Why? Number one, on my mum's side of the family is Trinidad. Interesting. So now we go to Tobago. That's where we go to, island of Trinidad. So Tobago was a very nice, relaxed place, no problems there. It's actually a very safe place. Now, what happened was we linked up with some family members there, which was great, and family we've never met before, never spoke to before. So that was a great place to meet peoples. So, we're going out on the boats. I asked the boat driver, let me take over the wheel. And I was very surprised he let me take over the wheel. So I was just riding the boat, and that was just an great experience. A speedboat, doing local fishing. And what I liked about it there, we just going fishing. And not only are we catching the fish, but we're able to keep the fish. And the local people would they cleaned it, scaled it, and then took us back to, well, they came over to the hotel later and cooked the fish for us. So that was great, that amazing food, like when they cooked that fish. So they basically came over later, and you can hire these people at a very small prices. You can hire them to come to your apartments and cook a barbecue outside, and you can hire them just to come into your house and cook some food. So I was great that meeting up with a guy called Diamond, tall Rasta man, lad. He was proper cool, and then we just spending time with the local people, because that was the main thing, that where we can enjoy ourselves, connecting with all these local peoples and that. So, we meeting like young peoples as well, like who, like maybe they're about like 16, but they were like grown men, and they were from like the mainland of Trinidad. And a lot of them had to leave the mainland because there's a lot of trouble in the life and that. And they were just coming freely with by themselves, no parents or nothing like that. Just linking up with different peoples, trying to like not even actually working properly. You just do the odd little favors for people. They'll like load the boat up or do certain things and that. And it was great meeting some of these different peoples and that. Now what happened is my plan was to go to the mainland of Trinidad. That was the plan. So now I wanted to go to the mainland because I made a connection with a chief who was on the mainland of Trinidad. So the connection was that I was going to go over there and interview him. So the arrangement was all planned. I needed to get a boat to mainland Trinidad, and I had a driver who planned to pick me up, take me into, I think it's called the Rima River or something like that area, and then go into and interview the chief. So I was looking forward to this. I was all excited, and getting to see the mainland as well, which is important. Now, a lot of people were saying to me things like, be careful on the mainland because it's very dangerous. I wouldn't just go there by yourself, because there's a lot of people who just do something to you, basically, they pull you out of cars, this and that. So, getting all the stories and all that. So I was just, me, I was not even interested in all that. I thought, I'll take the risk, go when I want, whatever I want, when I want. So it was only the fact that I was with family. And my family were getting very worried, thinking like, they listened to different people's, even on the island, saying that, oh, he better not go on the mainland by himself. This can happen, that can happen. So unfortunately, I didn't get to do the trip over into the mainland, because obviously I had family members who were with me, and that, and some of the cousins out there were saying, I don't advise you to go by yourself. So that got cancelled because of, weren't even the fact that I didn't want to go, the fact that family didn't want me to go, and I'm away with them. So I've got to listen to, like, I have to listen to them. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't be bothered with like people like Woody and this and that. So we just ended up to spend our time in Tobago. But I did want to visit the mainland and that, because that's actually the part where my granddad was from, the mainland of Trinidad. I'm not sure it was Port of Spain, this and that. So, we're just enjoying our time in Tobago, nice apartment, going to the local different jerk places. Now, what I asked as well is I'm trying to research about indigenous peoples. So, indigenous peoples now, they're basically saying that these don't have any, especially in Tobago, you won't have any. And the mainland, it's like small populations and that. So no problem, I mean, I had my chance to meet the chief and that. So that was that would have been there. But then we end up, there's a lot of like local churches about now, and I'm not into no churches, but I found out that like there's still African practices still there. Yoruba speakers who still preserve their culture, but might have, like I said, with Cuba, Santeria, Trinidad also have their African spirituality, some Yoruba speakers, and they had to disguise their spirituality when they became like part of the Catholicism or Christianity and this and that. So it's great to see that the African culture still preserved, which was excellent. Now, half the population of Trinidad are Indian people. I mean, not even sure if they're majority, but at least half of them brought over by the British, the 1830, something like that, over to Guyana and Trinidad. So most of the businesses will be run by the Indians. They were basically ranked higher from when the Africans were enslaved, and then, the slavery ended. Then they brought indentured peoples over from India, and then somehow then they end up rising up, and this seems to be the place. A lot of places I went to, including like Fiji, so it's real sad to see like that we're always kept at the bottom of the barrel, no matter where we go. And it's very hurtful, it's disappointing. And the fact that like I've got family in Trinidad as well. And I'm really disappointed with that, But a great meeting up with the family anyway, speaking about our history. And through my own ancestry on my mother's side, my mum did a DNA ancestry several years ago. So the first time I remember she did an ancestry test, it was interesting because we seen that the majority of African blood in there was actually from Nigeria. And it was the highest African country that came up on there. And you seen that there were like Gambia, Sierra Leone, Eastern Bantu, and like different African countries, but Nigeria being the highest. And that's when I started to understand, well, I can understand Nigeria being the highest because of a lot of the Yoruba speakers there. So that's what made it more interesting. And I felt like with me having Trinidad blood in me is also from Nigeria, just the same as my dad's from Nigeria. So it was like I have a lot of Nigerian in me through that, from both sides of my family, which was great. She also had some small indigenous American blood in there and all that. But there's a lot of the interesting history there, with the Trinidad, just like other parts of the Caribbean. And like I say, we don't go by these censorships, and we have history. I mean, my granddad, before he passed away from Trinidad, he told us a lot of this history through his own ancestry. He said he had Caleb, Alawak, and these names in him, what I'm saying? And obviously Nigerian blood, the majority of Zap was Nigeria, which is excellent, excellent. Now his father was born in Guyana, South America, my great-granddad that would be. So it was interesting going to Trinidad. And I mean, like myself, I just see myself as Nigerian and African because I know that they were brought from Africa, particularly Nigeria. So it was interesting connecting with, place where I've got family from. So that was interesting that, so Trinidad, the music, the steel drums, my granddad used to play the steel drums and tour around and stuff. So interesting. Yeah, it was nice to then connect to somewhere where I got family. So yeah, Trinidad was an interesting place. Now, the next place I'm going to go to is Mexico. Mexico. Okay. Now, this is about 2012 now, September. Now, I always wanted to go to Mexico. They've got a lot of great history. Got the Mayans, Chichen Itza areas. You've got like Aztecs. You've got like the Olmec civilizations. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to see a lot of great history. So before they get there now, I remember the 2012 movie come out called the 2012 was called. Basically, they were referring to the end of the world in 2012, December 21st or something like that. So before it goes there now, I'm thinking to myself, what's all this talk? They are trying to say this is according to the Mayan calendar. So I knew it weren't the end of the world. I didn't buy into it. But what I did know is that it must be something else. Now, usually when an event's going to happen, or an awakening, or a new beginning, the West will always betray the fact that it's something different, it's something negative, and it's always the way. So I knew it was something anyway. So when I get to Mexico now, I'm going to areas like Chichen Itza and a place called Tulum. And we're going to see all the Mayan ruins, all the ancient sites, megalithic sites and that. And we met also a native Mayan person. We actually meeting some Mayan people, which was actually great, which we're really happy about. Met a lot of the Mayans in this area. And interesting the fact that to still see people who are indigenous to a land rather than they've all been wiped out by the Spanish. So now, we're going in checking out all these different pyramids, we're checking out like all the rooms, megalithic sites, statues. So now I remember I was in there now, there was like something that looked like a king's chair. Now, it's an area there where you're not allowed into this chair where the king sat, or I don't know why. It's like basically like some cable, like two cables or something like that going around where you couldn't actually go into the. So I thought, you know what? Let me just go in there and get a picture. Sit on the chair. Sat in the chair now. So now I get a picture, and then the guy who's leading the tour like come running over like a madman, flipping out, start saying I'm disrespecting the minds and all that, and I will have to pay a 300 or 500 peso fine or go jail for 3 days. So I was like, what the hell? So I'm kicking off and I'm saying, listen, I'm not disrespecting. We paid to come to the trip, haven't we? So we should be allowed to enter whatever. There's no actually reason like why. It wasn't like he'd been refurbished, nothing like that. So he's kicking off the time. So I'm saying, and then there's like police over there. I'm thinking, oh, we don't cause a big scene because pay a fine or do 3 days jail. He said in Mexico. I was like, nah, man. So I ended up like telling them straight and that, and then there was no jail or no fine, and it was only the fact that a Vietnamese guy come over at orders and said to the guy, look, he needs to relax, he's not trying to disrespect. And this was like, he actually helped me out a good bit, you know what I mean? So I'll give him thanks for that. So now the guy was just, he wasn't really like a happy kind of man. And he was like telling all silly stories about the Mayans and this and that. So now I started talking to the Mayans, and I said to them, what is all this thing about 2012, December 21st, about the end of the world? Why is everyone saying all these things? So what they said is forget that Hollywood movie. Forget all that. That's just nonsense, the Hollywood stuff. So they basically said that it's not the end. It's actually a new beginning. A new beginning, like so when you say new beginning, first of all, I'm saying, well, what does it mean by new beginning? Is it bad or is it good? He said it's not necessarily something that's bad or good. It's basically a new cycle. It's not the first cycle. It's not the last cycle, and cycles will continue. So basically, it's a new beginning, which means that a new awakening, a new knowledge kind of thing, and basically what it made me think is maybe what it really is the fact that it's time now to come out of the cycle that we've been in, the cycle of being controlled, brainwashed. Our minds will freely connect. Your consciousness will rise up a lot higher. Now, I felt from 2012, my consciousness went really high. Felt my knowledge just expanded. I felt more, I more had my path stronger in 2012. It really like, this is my path now. So I really connected with the Mexicans when he was speaking this, the Mayans. Now, it weren't just the Mayans who said this. It was even like local Mexicans, like where we were staying and that said that it's a new beginning. So they were all clued up on these things, you see. They were all clued up on basically this new cycle. And a lot of them said they would be waiting for this new cycle. So what the Europeans have done, and Americans are Europeans, let's not forget, is they try to Hollywood it into something negative. So having people in worry and fear. So that's how they like to keep you in this Western world, worry and fear. And this way they feel like they can control you. So I went buying into all that stuff, you know. So I was happy to meet the people, the Mayans and local people, just to explain about what it is, what changes will happen in 2012. So that was great speaking to them and getting the full insight of the new cycle that was coming. Now we in 2023 now. So with cycles, it's funny because as you go into a new cycle, things don't just all happen at once. Sometimes it's like, it's the change is slowly, and then maybe it speeds up and that. So I thought it was interesting meeting some of these Mayan peoples. And also they were speaking about the Olmecs, the people who were called the Olmecs, because you got the Olmec area in Mexico. And the Olmecs, as you can see, the big colossal heads, you know, I don't know how many tons these weigh, but these are African features. So it's showing you the African presence that came from, I would say, West Africa. Some say possibly the Nile Valley civilizations. Now, if it was Nile Valley civilizations, they would have been connected with West Africans, because it would have been easy for West Africans, because off the coast of West Africa, and take you straight into, there's a current that takes you into Mexico, there's a current that takes you into Brazil, current that takes you into parts of the Caribbean, and also America. So the currents are there. And obviously with the Mayans and that, they also spoke about, yeah, they were aware of African slaves being brought over from West Africa and that, but there was also free Africans that came on ships before the transatlantic slave trade. So basically they were referring to the Olmecs coming in there. So that was very interesting when Mexicans were quite clued up, and I was really happy that they were clued up, because I didn't expect them to be, I didn't know what I was going to get in Mexico. Now, yes, they do have a colorism problem. This is something that is very important. And this is all over Latin America. Colorism problem, where it's, yeah, you might have that in the Caribbean, they say, but it's much stronger in Latin America, and especially Spanish or Portuguese colonies, because they inherited that racism themselves from the Moors, where they like made it, you know, the ones who were the darker Spanish or the darker Portuguese got it a bit worse. And then they brought that racism over into Latin America and Mexico. So this is the problem in that, but it was great seeing pyramids though. And when I look at pyramids, it makes me think of like ancient Egypt, makes me think of like Sudan, where they got pyramids even older, and also pyramids in Nigeria, pyramids in China, pyramids that in Japan that have into the ocean, that off the coast of Japan, pyramids in many different places. I went to Tonga, I've seen a 3-step pyramid. So pyramids were very important structures in the ancient world. And you can see they spread the knowledge. And I can definitely see the African presence. Now, even in the music in Mexico, because there's a part where a lot of Africans live, and they still like preserve their culture. And they're kept like in certain areas and that, like, because I visited Cancun, which is kind of like touristy area. And then we're just happy to keep getting out to that tourist area to go and see real people. And that's what we were, that's what we meant to do. Just, I learned, like I said, from back when I went to Cuba, you must link with the local people in order to really get the best out of everything. Now, Mexican food's amazing. I thought the food's amazing. I thought the people were very funny people. They were funny characters. The art characters, I've definitely got to say that. Yeah, so it was a great place anyway, Mexico. And I'm lucky that from the time when I was in Chichen Itza that the guy didn't want to, he was disappointed because I snuck into the king's chair. And I just wanted to get a picture. And then he was telling me you got to delete your pictures and all that one. So I'm very lucky that I didn't even pay the fine and didn't have to do the 3-day jail. So I was really happy with that because I couldn't be bothered dealing with all that stress just while you're on an adventure. So yeah, I did like Mexico, like I said. Thought the people are very clued up as well, on their history. They talked about how wicked the Spanish were, so, and there's the same thing everywhere, wicked, not just the Spanish, but the Europeans coming in as well. It's not just about, they were the first, the Spanish, to come into these places. And the same way you had the Portuguese in Brazil. But then later other ones come in, man, we got to look at other Europeans, all guilty of enslavement, guilty of colonialism, and still to this day, Western society oppressing many cultures around the world. So that was Mexico anyway. And it was great to connect with the indigenous peoples, the Mayans, and also happy for them to speak on basically Africans coming on ships before the transatlantic slave trade, because all we ever get fed where black people are outside of Africa is you're brought over as slaves, like the ones who come the last 100 years. So that was interesting anyway. I was happy with that. Now, next place we're going to go to is, we're going to go to LA. I went to LA. This is the only place I've actually been to in North America. Well, it's California, state of California, but the city of LA. And first time in America, in North America, very interested. I always wanted to go there from younger. From the influence, we have strong influences. Doesn't matter if it's through the music, actors, a lot of stuff we watch, athletes. It's usually like the best coming out of America, the boxers, all sports, NBA. So that was interesting getting there. We actually stayed in Hollywood. Remember going out there and it was like a lot of things were good prices, but then something's expensive. Like I remember buying myself a nice cream suit. And also going to just local places and that, and seeing everything different, totally different. And it used to be funny. I listen to American people have a conversation. So I remember being in like a cafe getting me breakfast. And I find that they're quite open when they talk. It's not like where, I'll give you an example. I'm overhearing a conversation with two white Americans, and they were talking about a big black guy or something like that. Now, they wasn't like insulting him, just speaking racist. What it was interesting is that they were quite comfortable just to speak about black people, like they were just like sort of explain like, oh, that big black guy, you talking about. But they weren't insulting, they were just having a conversation, speaking about like a black man, you and this and that. Nothing bad about him and that. But when I'm just sitting there observing it, it was sort of like where if you go in the UK and you were in just some bar or restaurant or something like that, then you overhear it say, oh, like a white man just sitting right there and he's having a conversation about black. It's usually done a bit more subtle. Don't get me wrong, like to just talk about it, not like different if someone just says something angry and that's totally different, but usually they'd be a bit like on edge a little bit, or they'd keep looking over at the black person sitting there, but with the white Americans, they just continue the conversation. It's like I weren't even there. But you just talking normal, like about, yeah, this black guy, and they're talking about some incident and something that happened. But they weren't trying to insult you, just talking about a situation. But I found that they're very open to speak. And it was interesting, like seeing some protesters out there, going against some of the powers that be, and then meeting the like a fake Samuel Jackson, and there's all like Hollywood actors, lookalikes there, and they were just like the image of them, seeing like the what's it called, the you see on the Wall of Fame or whatever it is, where it's got all these celebrity actors, the names on the ground and all that, and also taking us into the place called Beverly Hills as well. Just jumped on like a little mini bus, took us up there to Beverly Hills, and it wasn't a big deal that I went there. I just went there just to see, well, how did these rich people live and all that. So down in Beverly Hills, having a look around there, and then the driver just seems to know everyone's house. Like you saying, that's Chris Brown's house, that's Chris Rock's house, and then Keanu Reeves' house, and then Keanu Reeves was like totally bush, like it was trees all surrounding it, like he had a little bit more privacy. And a lot of the places where a lot of these celebs live, they're so expensive, but they're not just expensive because they're nice houses. They pay for the view, because it's really like some high views where like the landscape's high, saying, so they're paying for the view. So it was interesting just to see like what it's like there now. I noticed that with poor people there, it was a problem for them, for example, asking for stuff, you know what I'm saying? So it seems like the rich of the rich are in this place. Now, for me, it wasn't no big thing going there. I just wanted to just, venture out, see what you can. And that was it, you know what I mean? And going to Venice Beach. Venice Beach was very interesting there, and I remember just smelling marijuana. I was like, what's going on here? But then you can smoke it legally there. So that was interesting. Like I didn't even know that at the time of America. So yeah, LA was an interesting place. Meeting a lot of rappers as well, because a lot of the rappers who come from Compton, they were coming up to LA, well, coming up by Hollywood to sell their CDs, trying to get on and like just. So I remember just a guy called Robot. He actually had his headphones on him with his little CD Walkman. And he's the only one who had the sense to, because a lot of the CDs I went maybe buying and that, because he didn't know if they were good or not. So, but he actually had his headphones and his Walkman, played his music, and I said, you know what, that sounding heavy, man. So just copped the CD, and I've still got it to this day, blasting it. So yeah, LA, interesting. Now, what I asked for as well is I was trying to find out about the indigenous people there. Now, there was what I was researching about a while ago, something about the California natives. So it was interesting because I was trying to get to these places where there's indigenous Americans in this part of California. But California is a big state as well. So unfortunately, I didn't actually get to meet them. Maybe a lot of them are displaced at the same time. A lot of them not even recognized, let's be honest. So that was interesting. Now I know about a lot of the meeting a lot of black people in LA, which was interesting. But unfortunately, most of the ghettos are just filled up with black peoples there. And a lot of crime, a lot of black on black violence. And this is really sad to see in that, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, but the first time in America was just like an experience in that. But I'm being too quick to go back there. Maybe I'll go like New York and down south next time, different, because America's a massive country. So yeah, it was interesting going to America anyway. So might be my first, well, it's my first and maybe my last. I don't know. Maybe we'll see what happens in the future. Yeah, so two other places now, and this is like basically I was younger. Barbados. Okay, Barbados was like I was only like think I was about 11, 1992. Took there with the family, enjoyed it. You know, now totally different experience going with your family. Plus, as well, being a young boy, you know, got Jolly Rogers. You know, the food was amazing there as well, and yeah, it was a nice place. And that, you know, not really a whole lot I can say, but it was a beautiful place, beautiful food, nice people, very relaxing, and yeah, and another place as well, Jamaica. Jamaica back in 1994. 1994, went there for Christmas, was again with the family, and getting to go, we stayed in Ocho Rios. The food, just the most best place I've been for like variety of food, Jamaica, you know, and I was young then, so 14, I think I was, yeah. But it was a great place anyway. I remember going to Kingston, family were driving to Kingston, linked up with some family members there, and couldn't complain about the food at all. Seen a bit of violence on the way, but it's life, you know what I'm saying? But I was back in '94 anyway, like Jamaica anyway, going, you know, Dunn's River Falls, Bob Marley's house. And yeah, very young, so I didn't get to experience that as an adult, unfortunately. But yeah, these are this is the Americas for me anyway. And there's many more places in the Americas that I still need to visit. Yeah, I would like to go different parts of America as well. Also, I'd like to go soon. I want to go to like Peru, maybe Costa Rica, Colombia, probably Ecuador, and where else? Oh, Panama. I'd like to go to Panama. Even like certain parts of other parts of the Caribbean as well. But yeah, definitely it's an interesting place dealing with the whole Americas, especially South America. I really enjoyed South America, probably, and the Caribbean. I love the Caribbean as well. So that was my experience anyway, dealing with the Americas anyway. And yeah, so this has been episode 4 anyway, and it's been interesting. Interesting. So we've done like all the continents now, except for Europe. Now, Europe, I won't be doing. The episode 5 I will be doing on Europe. It will not be based on the countries I've been because I didn't really get too much out of it, I'll be honest. Okay, I'll just name the countries I've been in Europe. Cyprus, Crete, even though Crete's an African island, Turkey, but half of that's Asia, France. And I was on the boats back and forth for 9 months going to France. Holland, several times been there. Germany went through, Ireland, and Cyprus as well. Cyprus, very interesting place. Cyprus, I come off a motorbike and well, I got my leg trapped in a wheel. I was like when I was 21 or something, but that was crazy. The cops had to come. Ambulance came, fire brigade came. You know, it was crazy. Burst the tire. Had to get my leg out the wheel, the back wheel. I couldn't even like reach it with my key because it was the back wheel trap. Ambulance came, put me in the stretcher, took me, bandaged me up. And later I got the police come and asked me how am I going to pay for the bike. And I was like, oh. So that was like an early dangerous experience and that, but came back in one piece is the main thing. Yeah, but very interesting today, episode 4. Now, episode 5, what I plan to do is basically the African presence in Europe, the Black presence in Europe. That is the plan for episode 5. And this is James Diboe and Discovered and dedicated to original peoples, as always. And blessings, peace, melanated powers, original peoples, and African spirituality. And that's how we're going out with this anyway. But thank you very much, and I'm going to see you all in the next episode, episode 5.